Good morning, my lovely kiddos and my future mathematicians. Today we are going to be talking about our quiz review for our quiz tomorrow. So for number 1, we have the data set 239, 500, 200, 120, and 200. Now, whenever I get a data set, the first thing and the easiest thing I think there is to do is to find our mode. Remember that the mode is what shows up most frequently. I wrote most. Looking at our data set, we can see that 200 occurs twice, which is more than any other number. None of the others repeat. So our mode here would be 200 and 200 alone. Now, the next easiest thing to calculate would be your mean. And your mean, or your average, to find that we would have to add up all of our numbers and then divide by the total number of numbers in our data set. So we add 239 plus 500 plus 200 plus 120 plus 200. When we add all of those up, we get 1,259. Now, there are 5 numbers in our data set, so we are going to divide that by 5. And we are going to get 251 point something. So we are going to round up to 252. I believe it was 251.8, if I'm remembering correctly. After we find our mean, we are going to find our median. And to do that, we are going to have to list our numbers from least to greatest, including repeats. So we have 120, 200, a second 200, 239, and 500. Now, to find our median, after we organize our numbers, we are going to cross out smallest, largest, again, smallest, largest, and we can see that our mean was very nice to us. It just gave it to us right there, 200. All right, next we're going to find our range. Our range is when we take our largest number in the data set, in this case 500, and subtract off our smallest number in the data set, in this case 120. When we subtract 120 from 500, we get 380. And finally, we have to calculate our standard deviation. So to calculate our standard deviation, we are going to get our big calculators or use the link that I posted on our Google Classroom. And we are going to hit our stat button. We're going to hit enter on edit. I am going to delete all of the values in here currently by hitting the DEL button. You could just type over these. And I'm going to enter in my values. So 239, enter, 200, enter, 500, enter, 120, enter, and the second 200, enter. Now, once you get all of your numbers in the data set, we are going to press stat again, press the right arrow key to go over to calc, hit enter on one variable stats, enter, enter, enter. And we see that our mean, and I was right, it was 251.8, so we did round up to 252. And then we can see that in that fifth line, the OX, that is your standard deviation, which rounding is just 130. So once we see that our standard deviation is 130, we can fill out our statement. So we have most people were between and then to find your first blank, what you're going to do is you're going to take your mean, 252, and subtract away your standard deviation. So 252 minus 130 gives us 122. And to get our second blank or a larger value here, we are going to take our mean and add our standard deviation. 252 plus 130 gives us 382. So most people were between those values. And if you look at our data set, especially in our median where they're organized, we can see that the middle three values here are between 122 and 382. And since 3 is the majority of our 5 values here, that statement is true. Most people, most of these values were between 122 and 382. All right, let's go ahead and do number 2. So for number 2, we have the data set 32, 54, 87, 12, 30, 72, 13, 49, 80, and 72. Again, I like to find my mode first. I can see one number that repeats, that is 72 and 72. None of the other numbers repeat, so our mode is going to be 72 and 72 alone. The next easiest thing to find would be our mean, where we add together all of our values and divide by the total number of values. So to find our mean, we take 32 plus 54 plus 87 plus 12 plus 30 plus 72 plus 13 plus 49 plus 80 plus that second 72. And we are going to divide by the total number of values in the data set, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, when you add all of these numbers up, you get 501, still dividing by 10. And when you divide it by 10, you get 50.1, which we could round down to just 50. Next, we have our median, where we sort our numbers from least to greatest. So we have 12, 13, 30, 32, 49, 54, 72, another 72, 80, and 87. Then to find, oh, my head is blocking it. To find our median, we have to cancel our least and our greatest value. We're not in the center, so let's do it again. Least, greatest, again, least, greatest, again, least, greatest. And now we have two numbers at the center, so we cannot do it again or else we will not have any values. So we have to add together these two values and then divide it by 2. We're taking a very, very tiny mean of this little tiny data set, and we get 51.5, aka, if we round up, 52. Next, we are going to find our range. And to find our range, we take our largest value, in this case 87, and subtract our smallest value, in this case 12. When we subtract, we get 75, which is a huge range for a data set. I will not be surprised if our standard deviation is a large number where the data is spread out and not concentrated towards our central tendencies here. So let's calculate our standard deviation. Again, bringing back our calculator here. I'll clear my screen. We go to Stat. We hit Edit. And then I have a list in here from the first problem, but since we have 10 values as opposed to 5 in the first data set, I'm just going to type over these. So we had 32, 54, 87, 12, 30, 72, 13, 49, 80, and another 72. Once we're done with that, we hit Stat again, scroll to the right to Calc, enter, 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 enter. And we can see that our mean was correct at 50.1. That's a great way to check while you're doing the quiz if you got the answer correct. And then our fifth line, that thing that looks like OX, is 26. That is our standard deviation. So our standard deviation here can be rounded down to 26. So the last thing we have to do with this data set is we have to write our statement, which is that most people are between and then we take our mean minus our standard deviation to get our first value, which would give us 24. And then to get our upper value, we take our mean and add our standard deviation, giving us 76. All right. Let's do one more together, and then I have one for you guys to do on your own in preparation for the quiz. So number 3, we have 51, 48, 47, 46, 45, 43, 41, 40, 40, and 39. Now, when I see this list, the first thing that I notice is that it is counting down. If 51, 48, 47, 46, 45, these are going from greatest to least. So I know that this is going to be very easy to find our median. We don't have to do a lot of sorting. We just have to write the list backwards. So that's going to be pretty easy. And since they are in numerical order, they're counting down, it is very easy to see our mode here. Our mode, the two numbers right next to each other, the only numbers that repeat, 40. And then to find our mean, what we have to do is we have to add together all of our values. So we have 51 plus 48 plus 47 plus 46 plus 45 plus 43 plus 41 plus 40 plus that second 40, and finally the 39. We divide all of that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 values. When we add all of those numbers up, we get 440 divided by 10. 440 divided by 10 gives us 44. Next, we have our median, and like I said, this is going to be really easy to find because if we don't have to sort, we can just write our list backwards to get from our least to greatest. So I write the list backwards, we get 39, 40, 40, 41, 43, 45, 46, 47, 48, and 51. So to find our median, we cross out our smallest and largest value until we get to the center. So smallest, largest, smallest, largest, smallest, largest. And again, our data set is not nice to us. We have two numbers in the center, so we take our teeny tiny mean or average between these two. So we add them up, divide by 2. When we add those up, we get 88. And when we divide by 2, we get 44, which is the same as our mean. So that's probably a good indicator that this is a great central tendency. All right. Next, we have our range. Range, which we take our largest value, in this case 51, minus our smallest value, in this case 39. When we subtract those, we get a range of 12, which is considerably small, especially compared to the last two. This shows that all of our data is kind of smushed together towards the middle. And that's not surprising looking at our data set. Most of our numbers are in the 40s with one on either side, one in the 30s, one in the 50s. All right, last thing, let's go ahead and find our standard deviation. So once again, I open up my calculator. I'll hit the clear button to clear my screen. I hit stat, edit. Let's type in our values. So we have 51, enter 48, 47, 46, 45, 43, 41, 40, 40, and 39. Oh, I missed one. Oh, I haven't hit enter. Never mind. There we go. I hit stat once again. I scroll over to calc, hit enter, 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 enter. And we see our mean was correct at 44. Again, a great way to indicate if you're getting this right on the quiz. And then our standard deviation is 3.8, which I will round up to 4. And now we can go ahead and write out our statement, which is that most people are between. We take our mean and subtract our standard deviation, getting 40. And then we take our mean and add the standard deviation, giving us 48. So most people are within 40 and 48. And if you look at your data set, that's exactly correct. Most of us are in the 40s again. This is a fairly small standard deviation. So most of our data is clumped in a very small area in the 40s there. So this is pretty good. All right. Number 4, I would like you guys to try on your own. We have some decimals here. We have 29.8, 27.39, 12.73, 49.8, 27 by itself, 310.92, and finally 37.01. So go ahead and complete that problem and then submit your paper to Google Classroom, and I will see you guys tomorrow.